Here is a short video analysing Climbing My Grandfather by Andrew Waterhouse from the AQA Love and Relationships Poetry Unit. Here's the poem. You'll know it well. A quite poignant sort of look back over a child's memories of their grandfather, whether or not the events of the poem are entirely true is sort of beside the point. This is a reflective poem that asks us as readers to imagine ourselves and the way that we picture our memories. So just a brief read through the poem first. I decide to do it free without a rope or net. First the old brogues, dusty and cracked, an easy scramble onto his trousers, pushing into the weave, trying to get a grip. By the overhanging shirt I change direction, traverse along his belt to an earth-stained hand. The nails are splintered and give good purchase. The skin of his finger is smooth and thick, like warm ice. On his arm I discover the glassy ridge of a scar. Place my feet gently in the old stitches and move on. At his still firm shoulder I rest for a while, in the shade not looking down, for climbing has its dangers. Then pull myself up the slow loose skin of his neck to a smiling mouth to drink among teeth. Refreshed, I cross the screed cheek to stare into his brown eyes, watch a pupil slowly open and close, then up over the forehead, the wrinkles well spaced and easy to his thick hair, soft and white at this altitude, reaching for the summit, where gasping for breath I can only lie, watching clouds and birds circle, feeling his heat, knowing the slow pulse of his good heart. Right, let's firstly take a look at the title. The climbing reflects the extended metaphor that exists in this poem, and it's an extended metaphor of mountaineering. Okay, and in the title alone, that word climbing sort of hints to us that we're going to see some combination of climbing the grandfather alongside climbing through this person's memories. The word my, obviously quite possessive, but in a sort of loving and cherishing way. You know, my mother, my father, my grandfather. Now, grandfathers, think about some of the associations we have with grandfathers. They're wise, they're generally elderly or older than us. There's a feeling as that they've seen a lot. And ultimately, what we tend to have for our grandparents is a sense of respect. Okay. Now, let's have a quick look at the first line. I decide to do it free without a rope or net. To do it free without a rope or net, as I mentioned, this is a poem that plays on ideas of climbing and mountaineering. To do it free means sort of without any safety. So no safety involved. And what it shows is, I guess, a combination of both bravery and also a sense of being supported. If this person is truly climbing their grandfather, they don't need protection. Okay, they can rely upon the grandparent to support them. So they don't need a rope to carry, or a net to catch. Not required. Then we move into sort of the imagery of the poem. So first, old brogues, dusty and cracked. Brogues are a type of shoe, generally considered to be sort of the shoe of the older individual, as it were. It shows a kind of class, but they are dusty and cracked, so well worn. The implication being that this person, the grandfather, has had a lot of experience and experiences. Then we continue an easy scramble onto his trousers. Scrambling is a type of climbing where you sort of climb up hills that may sort of shed shingle beneath you or shed slate or rock. But we're not climbing up a mountain here, or are we? Because this is a mountain of a man. An easy scramble onto his trousers, pushing into the weave, trying to get a grip. Okay, so there's that sense of wanting to be close, a desire to be close to the grandfather. By the overhanging shirt, I change direction, traverse, still more imagery, along his belt to an earth-stained hand. Earth stains implies manual labor. These kind of traditional industries that our forefathers, our grandparents may well have been involved in. The nails are splintered and give good purchase. The skin of his finger is smooth and thick like warm ice. Interesting use of oxymoron here, to imply both a sense of warmth or connection, but also something cold and distant. And of course, there may be some subtle acknowledgement that the relationship between a child and a grandchild and a grandparent can sometimes be somewhat strained. And yet they move through this. Okay, we have this moment here of caesura here in the middle to show the moment of disconnect, but immediately it's followed up with on his arm I discover the glassy ridge of a scar. Okay, discovery is obviously to be shown something new. And in this case, it's a scar. We have more references, as I mentioned earlier, to sort of experiences. Place my feet gently in the old stitches and move on at his still firm shoulder. I love this little line here. Really good way of showing, as I mentioned at the start, with there's no requirement for that safety. He feels supported. The still firm shoulder shows that support. I rest for a while in the shade, not looking down, for climbing has its dangers. Now, if we're thinking about this metaphor of climbing, well, on the sort of surface of this metaphor, climbing is dangerous, okay? There's no denying that, especially the kind of climbing that he's doing, this free climbing. But on the second interpretation, climbing his grandfather has its dangers, because what will he discover? What will he find out? We've already found scars. We've already discovered these earth-stained hands. What else will be revealed? Then pull myself up the loose skin of his neck to a smiling mouth to drink among teeth. Now, here's where the warmth returns. The warmth returns. The grandfather is smiling. Refreshed, I cross the screed cheek to stare into his brown eyes, watch a pupil slowly open and close. The eyes here symbolize the soul of the grandfather. Okay, and he watches them open and close as he's welcomed and pushed away, welcomed and pushed away. Then up and over the forehead, the wrinkles well spaced and easy to his thick hair, soft and white at this altitude. So further references, I guess, to sort of climbing and being high up. Reaching the summit, which is the top, where gasping for breath, I can only lie. He's tired now, the speaker. Okay, because this has been a strenuous experience. I can only lie watching clouds and birds circle, feeling his heat and knowing the slow pulse of his good heart. Well, I love this final little line, because the word good, meaning here sort of noble, important, sort of respected, we see that the heart, which is this kind of seat of emotion, is invoked. In terms of repetition, rhythm, and rhyme, the sort of main thing really here is that we lack rhyme. We lack rhyme, which I would argue reflects the sort of loose relationship between grandchild and grandfather. There's very little repetition. Okay. I guess the only thing we can talk about really mainly being repeated is this I, to sort of imply that sort of first person narrative. And last but not least, it's sort of structured in such a way, well, firstly, the basis, if you were writing about structure, would be the extended metaphor, because it continues throughout. But also the use of enjambment. So we see, for example, on these lines here, use of enjambment here and here as well. And once again, it all comes back to this loose relationship, this kind of informal and complex, but also so vivid that it can't really be contained line across line. That's why it sort of moves over each line as the poem continues. So there it is, a brief overview of Climbing by Grandfather.